I still remember the first day I walked into that classroom. The air smelled of fresh paint and nervous energy. My name is Alina, and I was 29, a new English teacher at Westbridge High, a small public school tucked in the heart of a sleepy town. I'd spent years dreaming of this moment, standing in front of a class, shaping young minds and sharing my love for words. Teaching was my calling, or so I thought. But life has a way of throwing you curveballs, and mine came in the form of a boy named Ethan. The classroom was a mix of chaos and curiosity. 17-year-olds sprawled across desks, whispering, laughing, or staring blankly at their phones. I adjusted my glasses, smoothed my skirt, and cleared my throat. "Good morning, everyone," I said, my voice shakier than I'd hoped. A few heads turned, but most ignored me. Typical teenagers. I smiled, undeterred, and started writing my name on the whiteboard, Ms. Alina Carter. That's when I saw him. Ethan sat near the back, his dark hair falling over his eyes as he sketched something in a notebook. He wasn't like the others, loud or distracted. He was quiet, focused, with an intensity that made my heart skip. I shook it off. "He's just a student, Alina. Get it together." I started the lesson, a simple introduction to Shakespeare, but my eyes kept drifting to Ethan. He didn't raise his hand, but when I called on him, his answer was sharp, thoughtful. "Shakespeare's characters are flawed, like real people," he said, his voice low but confident. "They make mistakes, but you can't help rooting for them." I nodded, impressed, and something in me stirred, a spark I didn't yet understand. As weeks passed, I learned more about my students. Ethan was 17, a senior and an artist. His sketches were breathtaking, portraits of people, places and emotions that felt alive on the page. He was quiet in class, but had a dry sense of humor that slipped out during group discussions. I found myself looking forward to his comments, his half smiles, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about art or literature. I told myself it was just admiration for a bright student, but deep down, I knew it was more. My life outside the classroom wasn't exactly a fairy tale. I'd moved to this town after a messy breakup with my fiancé, Mark. We'd been together for 5 years, planning a future, but he cheated, and I walked away. Teaching was supposed to be my fresh start, my chance to rebuild. I rented a small apartment, spent evenings grading papers, and tried to ignore the loneliness creeping in. My parents were miles away, and my friends were busy with their own lives. The classroom became my world, and Ethan, unknowingly, became its center. One day, I asked the class to write a personal essay about a moment that changed them. Ethan's was about his mother, who'd passed away when he was 12. He wrote about sitting by her hospital bed, drawing her portrait to keep her memory alive. The words were raw, honest, and they broke my heart. After class, I asked him to stay behind. "Ethan, this is beautiful," I said, holding up his essay. "You have a gift." He shrugged, shoving his hands in his pockets. "It's just words." "No, it's more than that. It's your heart on the page." I smiled, hoping to encourage him. He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment, the world stopped. His eyes were a deep green like a forest after rain, and I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. I stepped back, flustered, and handed him his essay. "Keep writing, okay?" That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Ethan, his words, his pain, his quiet strength. I told myself it was empathy, nothing more, but my heart raced when I pictured his face, and I hated myself for it. He was my student. This was wrong. Yet the feeling wouldn't go away. By the end of the first semester, I was in trouble. I started noticing little things. How Ethan stayed after class to ask about books. how he'd linger to help me carry supplies, how his laugh made my chest ache. I tried to keep my distance, but it was like fighting gravity. Every smile, every glance pulled me closer. I was falling, and I didn't know how to stop. Winter came, blanketing the town in snow. The classroom felt cozier, with students bundled in scarves and jackets. I threw myself into teaching, hoping work would drown out my thoughts of Ethan. But he was always there, in the back row, his presence like a magnet. One afternoon, I organized an after-school poetry club. Ethan was the first to sign up. "I'm not great with poems," he admitted, scratching the back of his neck. "But I like how you explain them." My heart fluttered, but I kept my tone professional. "I'm glad you're interested. It'll be fun." Fun, what a lie. It was torture, having him so close, his voice soft as he read lines from Frost or Dickinson. The other students faded away, and it was just us, dissecting words, sharing thoughts. I felt alive in those moments, but guilt gnawed at me. One evening, after the club ended, Ethan stayed to help clean up. Snow fell outside, glowing under the streetlights. "Miss Carter, why'd you become a teacher?" he asked, stacking chairs. I hesitated. I love stories. Books, poems. They help us understand ourselves. I wanted to share that with people. He nodded, his eyes searching mine. "You're good at it. You make it real." I blushed, turning away to hide it. "Thanks, Ethan, that means a lot." We stood there, the room quiet except for the hum of the heater. I should have sent him home, but I didn't. Instead, I asked, "What about you? Why art?" He pulled out his sketchbook and flipped to a drawing of a tree, its branches twisting like veins. "It's how I make sense of things. When my mom died, drawing kept me sane. I wanted to hug him, to tell him he wasn't alone. Instead, I said, 'You're stronger than you know.'" He looked at me, his gaze intense. "You think so?" I nodded, my throat tight. "I know so." That was the moment I crossed the line. Not physically, but emotionally. I let myself feel something I shouldn't. I started looking forward to Poetry Club, to our talks, to the way he made me laugh. I told myself it was harmless, a crush, nothing more. But I was lying. At home, I'd stare at my ceiling, wrestling with my thoughts. I'd imagine telling Ethan how I felt, then picture the consequences. Losing my job, my reputation, everything. I wasn't that person. I wasn't someone who broke rules or hurt people. But love doesn't care about rules. It's messy, reckless, and it was tearing me apart. One day, Ethan handed me a drawing. It was a portrait of me sitting at my desk, reading a book. The details were stunning. The curve of my glasses, the way my hair fell over one shoulder. "I drew it during class," he said, his cheeks red. "Hope that's okay." I stared at the paper, my heart pounding. "It's beautiful, Ethan, thank you." I wanted to say more, but I couldn't. I tucked the drawing into my bag, promising myself I'd keep it safe. That night I cried. I was falling in love with a boy I could never have. I thought about quitting, moving away, anything to stop the ache. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Ethan's drawing was a reminder of what I was risking, but also of what I felt. I was trapped, and the worst part, I didn't want to escape. Spring arrived, and with it a sense of urgency. Ethan was graduating soon, and I knew our time was running out. Part of me was relieved. Distance would make this easier. But another part, the selfish part, wanted to hold on. The school was buzzing with prom plans and college applications. Ethan was accepted into an art school in Chicago, and I was proud but heartbroken. He'd be gone soon, starting a new life, while I'd be stuck here, teaching another batch of kids, pretending I was fine. One day, during a class discussion about Romeo and Juliet, Ethan raised his hand. Isn't it stupid how they died for love? They could have just waited, found another way. I smiled despite the irony. Sometimes love makes you do stupid things. It's not logical. He held my gaze a second too long. Yeah, I get that. My stomach twisted. Did he know? Could he feel it too? I changed the subject, but the air felt charged, like a storm was coming. That storm hit during prom week. I was a chaperone, standing awkwardly in a corner of the gym, watching kids dance under twinkling lights. Ethan was there, in a black suit, looking older than his 17 years. He didn't have a date, which surprised me. He caught my eye and walked over, holding 2 cups of punch. "You look like you need this," he said, handing me one. I laughed, taking it. "Thanks, you clean up nice." "So do you." His voice was soft, and I noticed how close he was standing. Too close. I stepped back, but he followed, his eyes locked on mine. "Ms. Carter, Alina, can I ask you something?" My heart stopped. He'd never used my first name before. "Ethan, we shouldn't—" "I know," he interrupted. "I know it's wrong, but I can't stop thinking about you. I see you every day, and it's like you're the only thing that matters." I froze, the music fading to a dull roar. "Ethan, you can't say that." "I'm your teacher." "I graduate in a month, then what?" "You're not my teacher anymore." His voice was desperate, pleading. I wanted to scream that I felt the same, that I dreamed about him every night. But I couldn't. "This can't happen," I whispered. "You have to go." He looked like I'd slapped him. He nodded, turned, and walked away. I stood there, trembling, the punch cup shaking in my hand. I'd done the right thing, but it felt so wrong. The next day, Ethan wasn't in class. Or the day after, I heard he was sick, but I knew better. He was avoiding me. I should have been relieved, but I was miserable. I missed him, his voice, his laugh, his presence. I hated myself for it. Then a week before graduation, I found a note in my desk. It was from Ethan, written in his messy scrawl. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I just needed you to know that." I read it over and over, my heart breaking. I wanted to find him, to tell him I was sorry too. But I didn't. I crumpled the note and threw it away. But the words stayed with me. Graduation day was bittersweet. The gym was packed with proud parents and teary-eyed students. Ethan walked across the stage, his cap slightly crooked, and I clapped until my hands hurt. He didn't look at me, and I didn't expect him to. When the ceremony ended, I slipped out, unable to face him. Summer came, and I tried to move on. I took a second job at a bookstore, filled my days with novels and coffee, and told myself I was fine. But every quiet moment brought Ethan back. His drawings, his words, his eyes. I wondered where he was, what he was doing, if he thought of me. One day I found his portrait of me in my drawer. I'd forgotten about it, or maybe I'd hidden it from myself. I traced the lines of my face, marveling at how he'd seen me. Beautiful, strong, alive. I cried until I couldn't breathe. I started therapy, hoping it would help. My therapist, Dr. Lee, was kind but direct. "You didn't act on your feelings," she said. "That took strength. But you need to understand why this happened. What were you searching for in Ethan?" I thought about it for weeks. Ethan made me feel seen, valued, alive. After Mark's betrayal, I'd felt invisible, like I didn't matter. Ethan's admiration, his attention, filled that void. But it wasn't just that. He was special, kind, talented, broken in a way that mirrored my own pain. I loved him, not just as a student, but as a person. Dr. Lee helped me set boundaries for the new school year. I made rules. No after-school talks. No personal connections. No letting my heart get involved. But rules couldn't erase the ache. In August, I got a letter. It was from Ethan, postmarked from Chicago. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a sketch of a city skyline and a note. Alina, I'm sorry for how things ended. I'm starting over here chasing my dreams. I hope you're chasing yours. Thank you for everything. Ethan. I sat on my couch sobbing. He was gone, living his life, and I was stuck in the past. But his words gave me hope. He was okay. He was moving forward. Maybe I could too. I threw myself into teaching, determined to be better. I connected with my new students, found joy in their progress, and slowly the pain faded. But Ethan was always there, a quiet part of my heart I couldn't let go. 2 years later, I was 31, still teaching at Westbridge. I'd grown, stronger, wiser, more at peace. I loved my job, my students, the life I was building, but I never forgot Ethan. His drawing hung in my apartment, a reminder of a love that shaped me, even if it never bloomed. One day I got an email from an art gallery in town. They were hosting a student showcase and Ethan's name was on the list. My heart raced. He was back, at least for a visit. I debated going, but I knew I had to see him. Not to rekindle anything, but to find closure. The gallery was small, filled with paintings and sketches. Ethan's work stood out, vibrant, emotional, alive. I found him near a canvas, talking to a group of people. He looked older, taller, his hair shorter but still messy. He saw me and froze, then smiled. "Ms. Carter," he said, walking over. "You came." "Alina," I corrected, smiling back. "Your work is incredible, Ethan." We talked for hours, catching up like old friends. He was thriving in Chicago, studying art, finding his place. He asked about my life, my teaching, and I told him how much he'd inspired me to be better. There was no awkwardness, no lingering tension, just two people who'd shared something real, even if it was fleeting. As I left, he hugged me, a quick, friendly embrace. "Thank you, Alina," he said, "for everything." I walked home under the stars, feeling lighter than I had in years. I'd loved Ethan, and maybe he'd loved me too, but it wasn't meant to be. And that was okay. Love doesn't always need a happy ending to matter. Sometimes it's enough to feel it, to let it change you, to let it go. If you're watching this, maybe you felt something you weren't supposed to, a love that didn't fit, a feeling you couldn't explain. My advice, don't run from it. Feel it, understand it, but set boundaries to protect yourself and others. Love is powerful, but it's not always meant to be forever. Sometimes it's a lesson, a mirror showing you who you are and who you can become. Be kind to yourself as you navigate it, and know that you're not alone. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment below. Have you ever felt a love you couldn't have? How did you move forward? Let's start a conversation. Your story matters.